Yeah, it's something that hasn't probably kicked in yet. It'll be quite a surreal feeling, I'd imagine, once it's all finished up, whenever that may be. But it's funny, it hasn't been something that's at the forefront of my mind, the fact that, that is closing to an end. We're obviously in the last couple of rounds of the season and with finals coming up, but I'd say that'll be something that obviously hits me once I've actually played my final game. Yeah, I think I've probably relaxed a little bit more in terms of, I was probably, I wouldn't say erratic, but I'd just say I was really, if I missed out on any sort of thing with my preparation, or I was a little bit superstitious, I think, back then, and if I didn't do those things, it'd really weigh in on me quite a lot. Whereas I've had to adapt a lot now. Obviously I've got a son now as well, and there's things that pop up that you don't expect. So I think the fact that I'm more adaptable and lenient in terms of not letting things go with preparation, but adapting to what comes my way. So that's probably the biggest difference, I'd say, between the off-field stuff. I think you definitely pick up bits and pieces off different leaders and players within the sides that I played in. I think I look back to when I first came to the Bulldogs, players like Michael Ennis and James Graham there, Josh Reynolds as well. They were guys that really trained, really hard, and just had a really good work ethic about them. I actually vividly remember a story, I think, with Mick Ennis, where we're doing a training drill, and he said to me one day to get out of third gear. And that's something that's just stuck with me forever, because I thought that I was giving it my best and I was trying, but I thought, I've obviously got something else, and I'm obviously, presenting a certain way that he's picked up on. So that was probably a defining moment as well, in terms of, making sure you give your best with all the efforts that you do in terms of training and playing in preparation. So that's probably where a lot of it started, I guess. And you look at the calibre of players that we've had here at the Melbourne Storm, and just look at the leadership qualities that those guys have, and I think you take little bits of everyone, and you sort of you mould that into your own leadership style, and that's something that's worked for me over the course of developing into a leader at this club. Craig's obviously a really significant part of that as well. You look at since he's been involved in rugby league, I don't think he's missed the finals campaign, other than obviously the salary cap year of 2010. So I just think that he keeps everyone accountable and demands excellence, I guess, but it's not something that he doesn't himself display as a character trait. So you see how hard he works, and it sort of rubs off on the players, whether it be the video analysis, or whether you see him flogging himself in the gym when he comes in the morning. So I just think that really filters down from the top through to the players and the coaching staff, and that's where I think a lot of the success comes from. Oh, it's hard to pinpoint one moment, but I think it's hard to go past, obviously club debut and premiership and premierships. Particularly last year, given that the year that we had, and having to relocate, to Twin Waters, and it was so much uncertainty, I guess, at the start of the year. When you look back, I think the whole competition played 2 rounds. And then, paused for an indefinite amount of time, which ended up being a 6 or 7 week period, to then resume pre-season again, at another location, which was Albury at the time, for 3 weeks. To rejoin back at Melbourne and play without crowds, to then relocate to the Twin Waters. So I think when you look back and reflect on what we had to overcome and what we had to do throughout that year, to then go to Twin Waters for 4 months, to then achieve what we did, I think there's something really special in that, because, there was obviously some adversity that come with that. People without their families at the time, uprooting their lives. I know, people in society are doing it a lot worse than us, but in terms of a sporting context, it's obviously tough to relocate and do that, and to be able to achieve what we did at the end of that year, I think it'll be hard to go past the 2020 premiership. I guess the biggest thing for me wanting to return is, obviously for our members and supporters, but doing a lap of honour, I guess, or not for myself, but for the team once we've won a game, taking my son around the field and doing that. And that's something I've really admired and loved that the other players have been able to do that have got their kids as well. And, something that I guess I'll be disappointed in missing out on. I was lucky enough that Georgie Moore, actually, I think it was after our round 7 game against the Warriors, back at Amy Park, was my first game back. Freddie was actually able to come onto the field with me, but it was sort of after we'd finished the lap. So I guess I did savour that moment in being able to do that. But it's it's something that I guess will be disappointing for myself. It's not too dissimilar to last year in that there's a lot of uncertainty around what we're doing. And particularly for myself, obviously having an injury at the start of the year, and I think round 6 or round 7, starting the season, which is something that's foreign to me. It's sort of the first time in my career that I haven't actually started in round 1, which was a different sort of feeling. But similar in that we've obviously relocated and moved away, and the whole competition has done the same thing and followed suit. So I guess we've adopted a few similar themes to what we did last year in terms of overcoming and adapting whatever comes to us. So I think Craig sort of touched on the fact that the team that does prepare the best and overcomes all the adversity that comes their way is they're the teams that are going to put himself in a position to be the most successful. So I think we've done that. We've settled in here at Noosa I think for the remainder of the year, and we're obviously looking forward to the finals coming ahead. I think Nicho Hynes particularly has been good for the group in terms of doing an exercise I think a few weeks ago where we had a couple of groups and got together, and the guys are probably a little bit vulnerable in that sort of in being honest in how they were feeling, and probably sort of broke up into some smaller groups and talked about that. And I guess they're conversations that you probably wouldn't usually have with people. People go back to their room and they're not the conversations that you probably have in this sort of environment, but it sort of forced us to do that. And I think because we've done that, it allows you now to go and check up on blokes and say, oh, well, how's this going? So I think that only brings your group a lot closer together, and I'd say he's probably been in the forefront of making sure that guys are okay. Prior to actually making a decision and signing elsewhere, I'd had a conversation with Craig about letting him know that I wasn't able to stay at the club. That was prior to even locking into a contract, knowing where I was going. And I think the fact that I was able to have a conversation with him to help guide my decision just goes to show, how comfortable I am in the relationship that I can have that conversation with him. So, looking into the future, I'm going to miss him, a lot, given that he's taught me so much. And as I said, the success that I've had has been on the back of what he's taught me and what he's been able to do for this group. So it'll be a very disappointing day when it happens. No, I don't think so, unless he's targeting a slow middle lock forward. No, I don't think so. I think there's bigger fish to fry in the Sharks team than myself. Probably Nicho, actually. He's in that halves position or at fullback, wherever they decide to play him. But I don't think I'll be at the top of his headhunt list. Yeah, as I said, we don't like to look too far forward into those sort of things. It's very, as sort of Craig speaks about, very process-driven and boring as it is, very week to week. But if that is something that, if we're lucky enough to be in that position at the end of the year, that's it'd be very special. Obviously for myself, given that I'm not going to be involved at the club anymore, but particularly for the team, given that, as I said, the adversity, I guess, as a club that we'd sort of been through over the last 2 years, I guess now, in relocating. But and not only that, for obviously members and supporters back in Melbourne, everyone stood by us, and I think this year we broke a membership record, and they barely got to see a game of football last year. They got to see little to none this year, and we've got our highest membership. It just goes to show, how supportive the members are, and I just think that would be just a great reward for them sticking by us for that period of time.